in this US election. And to discuss this, we have very special guest with us. We have uh, Shashank ji, who's former foreign secretary, and on the panel we have Srinivas Organdi, who's the chairman of S Group of companies. A very warm welcome to our panelists.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are happy to join you.
Sir, so I would like to ask you first, what are the issues, major issues there in the US election, Shashankji, and what is at stake for India in this US elections?
Well, first of all, US elections are important for all countries in the world because US is one of the important economic and military power. They have been trying to balance off the forces like the Chinese in Asia, where China has taken a decision that they would overtake the United States as the largest economy in the next couple of years, and then as the largest military power and space power by 2049, which will be 100 years of the communist rule in China. So therefore, whatever USA does is extremely important for the countries in Asia, particularly in India, with our recent experience of some direct confrontation with China on the Ladakh, Eastern Ladakh, and other parts of the Himalayas.
Okay, so I would like to understand from you if we talk about in a broader perspective. Um, the entire world, including India, is keenly watching the hard-fought US presidential election. Do you see a major change in this election, or it's going to be in the usual direction as many opinion polls are suggesting?
Well, the first important thing is that in USA, the public opinion has been very sharply divided, and that is making it so difficult to make out whether President Trump, who normally counted on the vote of the white male community, and who has tried to do quite a lot for the economy of the United States by using the slogan of America First. And he has been able to push other partners of America to share more expenses for their own security, whether NATO countries or Japan, etc., and Australia. So therefore, in Asia, Europe, and other places, we have seen that Trump has done well for his own country. But within the domestic level, there are racial divisions. There are these issues of COVID that the people generally feel that the US government has not been successful, and it has made USA as one of the largest sufferers of COVID, which of course President Trump, there again, there is a sharp division because President Trump would call it Wuhan virus or the Chinese virus, whereas the Democrats perhaps would like to work along with the Chinese and the others to find out how to contain the effect of the maleffects of the virus in the United States. So there are these major issues which are there in the US economy, US social life, and the racial issues. So I think these are very many issues which are mostly for USA itself. As far as foreign policy or strategic relations are concerned, yes, in Asia we have great expectation that US would continue to keep its presence in Asia, so that now we do not have a sudden rival, which will try to use its muscle power on the smaller Asian countries, and especially, let's say, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, and Hong Kong. So I think these countries are right in the immediate neighborhood of China. And India, of course, was also being brought under pressure, but India has been able to strike back, and India has conveyed its message to China that it will not be given so easily, and it will now try to build up ties with the major powers in the world and with the other Asian countries.
Okay, you were talking about Indian perspective. So, as far as China is concerned, or Pakistan is concerned, when when Trump was is there in regime, uh, do we see that if the regime changes, then it would impact India also?
Well, as far as Trump and our Prime Minister Modi's relations are concerned, they are supposed to be extremely good. They call each other as their personal friends. Secondly, Trump has very clearly articulated his views about Pakistan, saying that USA has given a lot of money to Pakistan, but Pakistan has made a fool of the US, and therefore Pakistan knows where it stands with Trump. Whereas on the other hand, we know that the Democrats and particularly the advisors of uh, the former Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris, they have been telling them that Pakistan can be a good candidate, good friend in dealing with the issues relating to the Islamic countries, number one. And secondly, even to bring about peace in Afghanistan. So as far as Afghanistan is concerned, we find that Trump also is trying to uh, use Pakistan's role in Afghanistan. But I must say that Pakistan has to be very careful in this regard because Trump is very clear that Pakistan does not have to support any of the terrorist groups at all, number one. And secondly, wherever uh, there are terrorist incidents all over the world, there is a Pakistani hand. So that is the other issue. So therefore, that is not Pakistan. And China's case also, as I just now mentioned, Trump has been very clearly articulating that it's China virus, it's a Wuhan virus, and therefore China must be called upon uh, to uh, take care, and they must admit their mistake. They must carry out corrective practices because this has ruined the economy of most of the countries in the world, whether it's the Indian economy, it's the American economy. So therefore, China needs to be made accountable for whatever they have done, and Trump will do it much more actively. So I think there are these issues on which we feel, India feels that Trump would be a better candidate as far as the elections are concerned. Of course,
Okay.
India will have to live with whoever is the president. India will have to accommodate and adjust the policies accordingly.
Okay. So, what would be the approach of President Trump if he comes back in dealing with Pakistan, and particularly, how is he going to deal with its export of terror and meddling in Afghanistan?
Well, there is a promise which President Trump had made that by the time of these elections, he would call back his American troops from Afghanistan. And so he is going uh, fairly rapidly on that commitment to call back. Earlier, he was trying to keep some troops back in Afghanistan, about 7 or 8,000. Now he's saying that they will withdraw all the troops from Afghanistan. So therefore, that does cause some disquiet in India as well as in Afghanistan. Recently, we had the Joint Chief Executive of Afghanistan, Abdullah in India. So we exchanged views with him. Uh, India has spent a lot of money in infrastructure development and social work in Afghanistan. And therefore, we feel that all those progress which has been made in the Afghan society would be lost if the Americans move out totally and Pakistan and the Taliban are left to deal with Afghanistan with a strong hand. So I think, therefore, President Trump, we hope that after the elections, he would have a clear-cut policy to tell Pakistan that they would not allow the democratic process in Afghanistan to be derailed.
Okay, and Pakistan is again going through a political turmoil, and Prime Minister Imran Khan and army both are facing public heat. So, do you think the Trump presidency, if Trump comes back, Trump presidency will take keen interest in Pakistan and may try to accelerate a political change in Pakistan?
Well, the point is that Pakistan knows that with the Trump presidency, it would be a little more difficult game. Biden presidency might be easier for them because they have a few people of Pakistani origin in the advisory team of the Democratic top leadership. But the point remains that Pakistan has played for a very long time this game with the Americans. They know how to take advantage of the American uh, credibility with regard to democracy, etc. So they will perhaps bring about changes in Pakistan, which will be more suitable for the United States, whether it's Trump or Biden. So I think that Pakistan is on the verge of some kind of a governmental changeover in order to make it possible for a new US government to find a better partner in the new government in Pakistan.
Okay. And what will the approach of President Trump if he comes back vis-a-vis China? Do you think we may see more aggressive US trying to contain China and targeting President Xi?
Well, we expect that President Trump will be uh, much more direct in calling to accountability of the Chinese on the Wuhan virus, number one. Secondly, they would like to supply more modern weapons to Taiwan, Japan, perhaps take part in the Quad military and naval exercises much more actively. We are already expecting the 2+2 dialogue with the United States even before the elections. And there is a possibility that some key agreements on military cooperation between US and India may be signed before the election. So then perhaps one can go even more actively, more uh, formally in restructuring the Asian relations in such a manner that the Chinese remain a force of peace in Asia and do not destabilize the countries here.
Okay. And do you foresee any major change in the direction of foreign policy during the second term of President Trump, or it would be business as usual? Would he be focusing more on the foreign policy if he comes
Yes.
again?
Yeah, there is a feeling that freed from the compulsions of a third term and standing for elections at that for again after 4 years. So President Trump perhaps would now like to leave a legacy on foreign policy. And we had seen that before the COVID crisis, the American economy had started doing well. About 90% of the American industry is in the private hands. And so the Republican team associated with the Trump administration would take care of the domestic issues. And I think President Trump would like to take more active role in the foreign policy. So Asia would be one issue. Then he has already made some progress with regard to the Gulf countries. So perhaps he would move even more actively towards that part. The issue would remain that Europe perhaps would get lesser priority because the UK is going for the Brexit plans, and so the British and the Europeans will have to sort out their own issues with regard to the refugees coming in from the Islamic countries and whatever is happening in France recently. So we feel that the Trump administration will have to make sure that at one time they felt that the Europeans were not that strong with regard to the Islamic terrorist issues. Now they will find that, yes, that is becoming an important issue. They might find partnerships in Asia and Europe to contain Islamic terrorism.
Okay. Shashank, before I come back to you and discuss about Joe Biden's, uh, before that, I would like to seek opinion of Mr. Srinivas Oruganti, who has joined us from Michigan and who is a person of, who is a PIO. Srinivas ji, I would like to understand from you, since you are there in US and you have been living there for a long time and you understand what are the domestic issues and what issues this election is being fought on. So if you could give us a perspective or enlighten us, what are the major issues there in US elections now?
Thank you, Purnima ji. And Shashank ji has articulated very well about the relationships of the US and India with Trump and also Biden, Mr. Biden. Coming back to the US elections, the main important topic is the economy right now. And next, the second issue is the healthcare costs and healthcare. And climate, as COVID-19 is another top issue last few months, and handling the COVID-19 has become one of the prime topics. And economy, when it comes to the economy, before 4 years back, if you look at the situation, the economy has picked up during the Obama's term. But at the same time, if you look at the rural and mid towns, that it has been a challenge. Most of these small factories, where you were able to employ 500 people, I mean, those factories have been moved to the China. So they all lost their jobs. I mean, they lost their jobs, they lost their means of income. So they were all struggling. So they were looking for a solution to revive their own livelihoods and also their financial status. So that's when Trump came in, and he's a fresh candidate and he's a businessman. And he also came back and will bring back the jobs to the US. So with that one, I mean, those kind, the people in the, especially the Rust Belt. Rust Belt is, I mean, we call them the Rust Belt is where the factories were shut down, and I mean the equipment was rusting for a long time. So those Rust Belt people in Rust Belt thought that, I mean, Trump being a businessman, he can bring back some jobs. So they had a hope. I mean, so they all voted for Trump. But today the issue is, I mean, it's been about 4 years, and he did something, no doubt about it. I mean, he went against the China, and yeah, also some portion of some in IT side in India. Uh, and he went to the West Virginia and said that coal industries, and we'll bring back the coal industries, and we will bring back some jobs in Michigan and Pennsylvania. So, but he's not able to get everything what he promised. So there's one. I mean, one. Some people are still with him. Some people are not with him on that particular thing. So there is a challenge. There will be. It will not be a clear mandate for him in those areas. And coming back to the healthcare is another topic, and healthcare is a big issue in US for a long time. So I mean, healthcare costs are going up and every year after year. And Obamacare has helped to some extent, but it has its own issues. I mean, monopolizing in some states, the costs are high for some people and it's low on some people. And the good thing is pre-existing conditions. Everybody, all insurance companies has to take the enroll them, even though if they have pre-existing conditions. So with the healthcare costs going up is a big issue. I mean, whether Biden is kind of favorable on the healthcare, and the Trump is kind of repeal the Obamacare. So we need to see what people will be willing to see. Each group has a different opinion. So citizens, for senior citizens, healthcare is important, and younger demographics, healthcare is important, but not as much as the senior citizens. And so, I mean, you are to see, depending on their own priorities, they will try to cast their vote. And COVID-19 is another topic. COVID-19 has been a big issue. I mean, the approach of each candidate is different on how to handle COVID-19. So depending on their own, some people, rural areas, again, the rural areas, people do live little far away. I mean, they have their own, live little far from each other. So that's the reason, I mean, they feel that no need to have lockdowns. But when it comes to cities where people are in apartments and they live close by, I'm sure we need to have a lockdown so that we can minimize the spread. So, I mean, it is the different philosophy, thought process in a different areas. So, I mean, we cannot say this group is wrong and this group is right. Depending on where you are and your situation, people think accordingly. So, for some people, the business is important. I mean, for some people, I mean, the life is important. So, depending on their own choices, people will be voting. And I would say the economy. I mean, after this COVID-19, the economy is one of the number one topics, and then the healthcare costs and the COVID-19 climate. When you talk about the climate, is actually when in US right now, the climate has become another economic topic. Like, I mean, the job creation topic. I mean, when the Trump's talking about the climate issues, it is not exactly the climate issues. I mean, we're trying to save the world. I mean, just like, I mean, I just talked about the Dust Belt. I mean, where they are coal factories. The reason he's talking about the climate, he doesn't want to come out, like, he wants to come out of the Paris is, see, some of the industries where they create the jobs, I mean, where the people are able to go back to the job, they do create some pollution. If you say clean energy completely, those jobs will be gone. If you lose those jobs, those people will lose livelihoods, and they will not be able to voting for either of them. So from the to get the attention of those particular voters, I mean, he is going after it's my opinion. It's going after saying that climate change is not real, or climate change. I mean, he may say I don't. He has a different opinion on climate change. That's all I want to say. I will give it back to you, Purnimaji.
Okay. Okay. So, Shashank, do you also feel that the domestic issues are dominating in this US presidential election? considerations, as he mentioned, that health, employment, and the pandemic, these are the prime concerns of people who are going to vote?
Certainly, I mean, these will be the domestic concerns, will be the most important concerns. Also, the question of safety, security of the people. Therefore, the issues may be different because in some cities where the Democrats are more predominant, and these are the larger states like California, New York, New Jersey, etc., where many Indians also live. So they are more concerned that there should be better race relations, and therefore they normally support the Democrats in that area. Whereas in the other places, where young people are there located in the university in other towns, they would like to have complete safety and security. And I think from that point of view, if there are issues raised by Antifa or by other leftist type of people who would like to really move very strongly forward and carry out sometimes even violent activities which will be responded to very violently by the police or by the right-wing people, I think that leads to definitely disharmony. So I think this will be a very divisive factor in the elections. As far as the COVID is concerned, yes, I mean it will be again. Vice President Biden has been saying that the Trump administration has not dealt with it properly. But the issue is that uh, it is it has to be tackled even by the new administration, even if there's a new one. And there are the governors in many states are Democrats, and they are dealing with it in their own manner. So therefore, I don't think this will be the final deciding issue because we have seen that 47 million voters have already voted. That means almost one third of the voting people have already cast their ballot. And as what I was reading somewhere, that perhaps President Trump has an edge of about 1 or 2% over these as per assessments. And so ultimately it is left to the crucial swing states once again, where uh, the difference between the two candidates is marginal only. So I think it's going to be a touch and go in those states as to how they will work on. And they, in the last 15-20 days, both parties will work very hard to see that those swing states move in their favor, or at least don't go away from them.
Okay. Sir, I would like to understand from you also that we have heard that people are their lives are being disturbed because if a campaign goes for a while, that's fine. But Black Lives Matter campaign is being stretched for a very long time, and somehow people in different parts of the USA feeling that it is somehow disturbing their lives too. So it is giving a negative impact also.
The point is that Black Lives Matter has gradually moved into a kind of a socialist movement to bring about a socialist type of a uh, regime change in the United States. And I think many people who feel that the industry should remain in the private hands, the tax liabilities should not be raised on the working people, they would perhaps prefer these Black Lives Matter issues to be sorted out through the local administrations, through the judicial processes, etc., rather than by having marches on the streets and having all-out confrontation between different wings of people. That's what I feel, but I'm quite sure that uh, we will have a better opinion from a friend
Okay.
from America, from Michigan,
Yeah.
on this issue.
So, Mr. Srinivas, what is your opinion? Because do Americans feel that it's this campaign has been stretched for a very long time and it is disturbing the day-to-day life of people, and it would
There
be
are
giving a negative impact now? I mean,
there are multiple things. I mean, BLM and Black Lives Matter. I mean, I've been talking to other politicians too. I mean, I was hosting them on our rescue itself, and there are multiple. I mean, people do, even some of the Republicans accept. I mean, even the police officers, they do accept that there are challenges in the some of the minority communities. Like, I mean, they do have a disadvantage. They are in disadvantaged situation for sure, no doubt about it. And the Black Lives Matter is a genuine, and that's a cause. And I mean, we always see when it goes to inner cities, I mean, the way their lives are, and the infrastructure for their schools, and any of the other, I mean, the kind of jobs they get into, their income levels. Those are all we see those clearly. The disparity between the different communities, we see that one very clearly. That's very clear and it's obvious. And police, when it comes to the police officers, they say that, I mean, police officers, they don't discriminate, but the way that they get trained is like, I mean, let us say we always get problems from this particular area, geographical area. So they target, I mean, I mean, their job is to minimize those things. They prepare for and how to minimize the crime in those areas. So obviously they come out with different mechanisms, so which will be targeting the people who are in the geographical area. So unfortunately, it has been the black African American people. So from that one, I mean, it is clearly it's their intention is different, but it came out to be a kind of discrimination against the African American people. So fundamental issue with the African American communities. When I spoke to some of the African American politicians, they as a society they should come out of this poverty, and also, I mean, enrich themselves and their kids and next generation and come out of this particular situation. It's taking time. And when you compare to the when Ethiopian my immigrants, I mean, immigrant from Ethiopia, and they also come from similar background, but they're able to succeed in US. I mean, some reason our own, I mean, people in America who have been there for a long time and who got the freedom for a long time, they are not able to survive. So we need to, as a society, people may need to give them enough tools or enough resources to bring them up. I mean, we see that Black Lives Matter movement is real and genuine, and those kind of. And coming back to its impact, I mean, obviously, any cause will have the side effects. I mean, some people will be intentionally or unintentionally. I mean, the riots have come along with the Black Lives Matter. Some places that has created a negative image on the Black Lives Matter movement. And some of them, they say, I mean, the Black Lives Matter movement organization has added other agendas also instead of just sticking to the Black Lives Matter movement. So that's also creating an issue. I mean, so that those are all the things what I heard from other people. So from that point of view, I mean, Black Lives Matter is genuine. Coming back to the fundamentals between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, if you look at the history, the Republican Party is the one which has, I mean, allowed, I mean, or advocated the, I mean, voting rights to the African Americans. That, I mean, African Americans. So they, and initially African Americans were with the Republican Party in the from Lincoln time, President Lincoln's time. And slowly, I mean, when it comes to the, I mean, what I read is, I mean, when it comes to the sharing the power, voting is fine, but when it comes to the sharing the power, like, I mean, having a congressional candidate, African American congressional candidate, I mean, that, I mean, Republicans were not started becoming a little bit annoyed. So they were not comfortable having an African American sharing their own say, their positions. So from that point of view, slowly the shift has, I mean, FDR kind of given a lot of social reforms, I mean, social welfare schemes. And that's where this shift has become from African Americans and minority communities moved to the Democratic Party. Today in the US, if you look at the Republican Party is more conservative, and they, as Shashank ji said, and they want the less taxes, less government interference in the business. That's a stand of the Republican Party. When it comes to the Democratic Party, you have most of the minorities. It can be African Americans, Hispanics, even Muslims, and Indians, a majority. I mean, most are Chinese. I mean, yeah, I would say, I mean, most of the minorities, they all part of the Democratic Party right now. With all
Okay.
these, sorry, go ahead. I would
Okay.
take a
Yeah.
long time, but go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Please, please. All right. If you have completed your
Yeah, that's
content,
fair
I
enough. Yeah,
can.
that's fair enough. I mean, go ahead. I mean,
So I would like
it's
to understand, yeah, from Shashank ji, that US election, presidential election, is a complex process. Opinion polls may show Joe Biden as winning, is a front runner, but when it reaches to the at the level of electoral college, the result may be different. So if you could explain for our viewers how it would be going.
Well, Joe Biden's uh, majority at present in the various polls is about the same, which was the difference in the previous elections for Hillary Clinton. So I don't think there is a consistent increase in the vote share for Joe Biden. So therefore, that issue remains a worry for the Democrats. Another issue of worry for the Democrats is that their presidential candidate is fairly senior in age. He has been in public life for 47 years. So he will bring about more a repetition of whatever he has been doing in the past rather than something new. So therefore, even his own voters and his own party supporters are a bit afraid on that issue. And similarly, there is this young son of Joe Biden. On this issue, the Democratic leadership is very sensitive and they don't take up those questions. So that also remains a worry, some issue for the Democrats. On the Republican side, yes, uh, last time in the popular vote, the Trump administration, the Trump got about 3 million less votes than Hillary Clinton. But there is a process of electoral colleges, and therefore, there, if President Trump can get over 300 electoral college votes, and I think he must be trying about 316, 320. So it would be then, he would then be able to swing the electoral college votes in his favor. And there are these swing states, 5, 6 swing states, where the difference in the Republican and the Democrats is not that large. And there, the systems are where the electoral college votes, depending on the majority, the whole electoral college swings in the direction of the majority. And therefore, that makes a big difference in the overall counting of the electoral college votes. So I'm told that Florida, therefore, remains an extremely important one. Michigan, of course, is another one. And there are some other states like Ohio, there is this Pennsylvania. So some of these states, where the majority, minority, wherever there is a complete majority for Democrats and Republicans, there is no issue. There, everyone knows how the electoral college votes will swing. It is only in those areas where the difference between the Democrats and Republicans is only 1% or 2%. There, the issues are still indecisive. And if the vote swing takes place in favor of the one candidate or the other, then all the electoral college votes will move in that direction. And ultimately, the decision is made because this is the federal system in the United States, where the electoral college votes, so all the votes from the different states, they count much more than overall majority, the popular vote itself, which is completely different from the Indian scenario or from scenario in several other developing countries. So Indians have to keep that in mind in India, that American system is different, and therefore simply by having this 8%, 9% uh, majority in the opinion polls over the Republicans does not actually matter ultimately. It is a question of how the votes will swing in the electoral college. And I think perhaps Srinivasji would be able to tell us a little bit more about the electoral college process.
Srinivasji, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, Shashank has, even though he's been in India, I'm sure he is IFS. I mean, he has clearly mentioned how it is, exactly what is going on the ground, no doubt about it. Yeah, they said rightly, elections are a little different. There are around 538 electoral votes, I mean, in US, and each 538 are divided according to the number of Senate seats they have. I mean, Senate seats are standard for each state. There are 100 Senate seats in the US. So each state will get 2 Senate seats. So there are 2 electoral votes towards the president from each state. And at the same time, for example, in Michigan, we have 14 congressional districts. So they will get 14 electoral votes plus 2 for the Senate, 16 electoral votes for towards the president. And if you look at the way They vote in Michigan is most, as I said, popular votes in Michigan. Whoever wins the popular votes in Michigan, they will get all 16, all 16. And in the Pennsylvania, they have 22, I mean, and two Senate and a 16, 18 congressional districts. So Pennsylvania has 20 electoral votes. So whoever gets the popular vote in Pennsylvania, they will get all 20. This is how the 50 states works. On 538 seats, three electoral votes are for the District of Columbia, Washington D.C., and 535 are the actual electoral votes from the 50 different states. So whoever gets the majority, that is 270, that is a magic number they are looking at. So whoever gets the 270, they will win the race. But as we all know, some states like California, mostly it is a Democratic state. New York is also a Democratic state, and Texas is a Republican state. So they already divided. They know where how many electoral votes they will be getting it. So bottom line, it boils down to the battleground states, as Shashank ji mentioned: Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Iowa, and nowadays, there is a chance of Arizona, but with the recent debate, things might have changed. Very mentioned the stand on immigration of the Biden might change the voter perspective in the state of Arizona, where the immigration and especially the Latino migrants from the border is a big issue in Arizona. So probably there is a chance. We don't know how it goes. So bottom line, it boils down to the battleground states of in this area, in these elections.
Okay, so Shashankji, I would like to understand from you that in most of the polls, Democratic Party nominee and former Vice President Joe Biden is leading. It seems he is the front runner and may win presidential election. If the case is so, then what it means for India in general and foreign policy establishment in particular?
Well, India and China both know that the American democracy is now is having a clear-cut shift towards saving America's prestige in Asia. And in fact, I have seen that several of the Chinese scholars have been writing that though the Democrats at times appear to be friendly to China, but the strategic experts attached to the Democratic Party are also saying that they will have to be tough on China. So therefore, while it's a matter of relative policy towards China, but I think ultimately, whether it's Biden or Trump, they will have to make sure that America does not succumb to China in the Asian theater. If you remember that till a few years ago, whenever the Americans wanted to change the Asian countries' opinion towards the United States, these Asian countries are very, very cautious. And they said, look, we do not know whether the Americans would be able to strongly support us or not. So that was a position till Obama administration. So will it be going back to the same kind of position under Biden? I think this will be a question uppermost in the minds of the Asian countries. And I'm quite sure that keeping in view what the Chinese strategy experts are saying, that even Biden will have to change the policies away from what Obama's pivot to Asia meant, that is giving more concessions to China. The issue would be only that, yes, if Biden has made some personal deals with China in order to have better arrangements, better relations between Democratic Party and the Chinese Communist Party, then it may be a little complicated for the Indians and for many other Asian countries. Therefore, India would like to perhaps strengthen its relations with the other Asian countries, number one, and secondly, build up whatever strategic ties are possible till January with the American administration, because President Trump has been saying very clearly that there is a Wuhan virus, there is a Chinese virus. Indian economy has suffered, American economy has suffered under that, and therefore India would very much like that they should build up whatever alliances are possible within Asia and with the United States to make sure that the Asian countries and India particular does not come under the Chinese pressure. So I agree with you. It's not going to be that easy for India, but even under President Trump, it's not been that easy, because President Trump, while professing friendship with India, also says that it's a filthy country, or the air is filthy, or the Indians have been taking others for a ride. The Indians are not helping very much the Americans, and the H-1B visa issue remains there. The question of uh, jobs going to India and other places. So whenever he tries to put duty tariffs, higher tariffs on the Chinese goods, India is not exonerated. Same duties are also put on the Indian goods. Therefore, and India's GSP privileges have been taken away under the Trump administration. So therefore, I'm not saying that India has had everything very good under the Trump administration, but it is relatively easier. And they know that the direction of the Trump administration was easier to understand. And therefore, within that context, we were able to. As far as Biden is concerned, I can say one thing, that the strategic relationships have been moving in such a manner that whatever government comes to power in USA has to take into account the strategic interests of USA, where we feel that India's interests and US interests are much more in commonality than with US with China or US with Pakistan. And therefore, there will be an advantage. But as I said earlier, that there are a few advisors in the Biden camp, in Kamala Harris camp, who generally try to repair the domestic policies in India to suit their human rights or to their democratic kind of credentials. So that India does not like. And I'm quite sure that when it's a government to government relations, when Democrats come to government, perhaps they will understand that they cannot change the domestic policies of India simply by becoming as human rights activists in these regards.
True. So, as you have said that under Trump, US-India relationship being relatively easier. Uh, so, um, India, it seems that India's preferred choice is incumbent President Donald Trump. But should Indian establishment be ready for the Joe Biden's presidency, and how it should be ready?
Yes, India will have to. I'm quite sure that Indian embassy and the Indian diplomats have been already making a beeline to the advisors to the Democratic campaign, and that's a normal process that they have to submit the position papers of India with regard to the similarities of India's approaches and US approaches where we can have similar interests. So I think that India will have to work harder, and I have no doubt at all uh, that the strategic partnership which started between India and USA was started under the Democrats, under the Clinton administration, but of course that kept picking up pace under the Republicans, under Bush, and then under Obama again. Uh, there was a kind of a joint Indo-Pacific vision or Asia-Pacific vision between USA and India, but that was more in declaration form, whereas Obama at one stage had also talked about G2, that is USA and China somehow taking care of the interests of the world. So that remained a worry. And so that we have not seen in the last 4 years because Trump has said very clearly things against China, things about America, about Pakistan. So we do not know, but that whether Biden would like to go back to the same Obama type of policies or would like to take different views. I'm quite sure that there are many important advisors from the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton's foreign office. So therefore, uh, that will be an issue that they will immediately ask the Indian state also to do certain things, which I'm not sure to what extent India would be able to fulfill those expectations in the Biden campaign. But we have no doubt at all that we are hoping that the US and India's interests in future are going to match. And this India will continue to make every effort possible at the diplomatic level and the political level to convince the government in USA that we gain too much more together, working together in Asia and the world rather than at cross purposes.
Okay, so often we have seen that a Democratic Party member have often commented on India's internal issues, be it Kashmir, be it religious matters, or be it uh, human rights or whatever, or CA. So, do you think that Modi government will find it difficult in dealing with the Biden presidency? And what are the main issues and challenges you foresee India would be facing in dealing with the new incumbent Oval Office?
No, I don't think there's a question of challenges. It's a question of a continuous dialogue with the US administration. If you remember that even in President Trump's period, on a couple of occasions, he advertently offered himself as a mediator between India and Pakistan or India and China. And then he had to be told by India in very clear terms that there are agreements between India and Pakistan or India and China that will deal with these issues bilaterally. It's a different matter that if they want to use their good offices with the Pakistanis or with the Chinese, then they can work on that. But there's no question of changing our policies because India is a large democratic country. I mean, uh, our electorate would be more than the electorate of Asia and of Europe and America put together. So any government in India will have to take care of the interests of the Indian electorate the same way as we understand that whichever government comes to power in USA, it will be on the basis of their electoral support, and they will have to abide by whatever their electoral compulsions are. If there are more people in USA and democratic followers who want human rights, CAA, and 370 and Kashmir to be given little more autonomy, etc., they will talk about it. But India will have to make its position very clear on all these matters. They're domestic issues of India, and India will not change its policies simply because of that, because India has its own domestic concerns and domestic public opinion based on which Modi government has come to power or whatever government comes to power in future.
Okay. And do you think that we have seen few public spat between Indian foreign minister and a few Democratic senators and congresswomen will anyway affect the relation between India and US in the Biden presidency?
I don't think so. I mean, this question would be raised that why didn't the foreign minister of India meet some of the uh, politicians from the Democratic Party? But these politicians have made their position so clear in advance that perhaps the foreign minister Shashank felt that it would not be worthwhile having a discussion with them at that stage. But I'm quite sure that if the US government wants India to interact with their senators and congressmen and other people, India would deal with them. But any change of policy on India's part will depend on the opinion, public opinion within India.
Okay. And do you think that dealing with India, Joe Biden's political skills will be tested and it would not be easy for him to ignore India?
Well, best would be for Joe Biden to use Kamala Harris' card with India,
Okay.
because though Kamala Harris has been talking about her African roots or Caribbean roots, but one should not uh, forget that there is an Indian element also, because in the 50s, when the Indians were in very small numbers going into the USA, so they had to generally hide within the overall minority uh, composition, and which were mainly the Africans or the Caribbean type of communities. So therefore, Kamala Harris always had this feeling that she represented the Afro Americans and that will be the most important part, the role that she'll be playing in the Biden administration. But I'm quite sure that when it comes to strategic matters, Biden will find it much easier to tell Kamala Harris to deal with the Indian sensitivities and to have India in her uh, charge to deal with the relations between India and USA, because that will be understood at least one part of India, the southern India part, our Tamil Nadu people, and they're so emotionally attached. They have been talking in Tamil with Kamala Harris. I think Kamala Harris also is perhaps speaking better Tamil now after having exchanged her views with them. So therefore, that might make a difference in optics, and that will be important because Indians are emotional people, so that will help in India-American relations to move much closer in a better way. But of course, if the American continue to insist on changes in India's domestic policies or foreign policies or other, I'm afraid that just may not be possible, because that America has moved a long distance in the last 15, 20 years. And India has also moved in that way. We are trying to move towards very, very close strategic relations. We are having many more detailed military exchanges, naval exercises together. And therefore, I don't think there is any going back on that, whether it is Biden or Trump.
Okay. And you've talked about Kamala Harris. If Joe Biden wins, new Vice President Kamala Harris will take more interest. Is she going to take more interest in India-US relationship, or she would have a bigger role in dealing with India, as you have said?
Yeah, she may. I mean, of course, Biden's first priority would be to make sure that since they have been talking about race relations, so they should use Kamala Harris's role in bringing about better race relations and see that the social disputes which are there right now and this left wing extremism and the right wing moving far apart from each other, that Kamala Harris is able to bridge that gap. That will be important. Secondly, as we know, that the age gap between Biden and Kamala Harris or Nancy Pelosi, etc., they are so much that Biden has to keep in mind that he has to have a very active number two, number three, number four, etc., to make sure so that he's able to farm out many of the jobs to his advisors, to his colleagues, rather than taking everything on his own shoulders, as Trump had been doing, that he had kept everything more or less within his own family. I don't think Biden will do that.
Okay. Shashankji, I would like to understand from you that as we have been talking about Kamala Harris, Indians are less than 1% voters in US elections. Whereas if we talk about Kamala Harris, she identify herself more as an Indian, or she is identifies herself as more of African origin? What is the impression US people, US voters are getting?
But so far, one sees that she has been projecting herself as an African origin politician. But as Indians have been moving into those swing states more actively, we find that they are becoming uh, attractive partners for both Democratic and Republican parties. That they are trying to uh, see that they get the support of the Indian communities in these swing states. So therefore, I think that there is a, because Indians are normally apolitical people, though they might be on emotional ground, they might be going for Democrats, etc., because they feel that okay, they are more socially cohesive. But on the other hand, they would like to pay less taxes, like the Republicans, and they would also like to have more safety, security in their life, and rather than too much of street struggle. So therefore, they would like to be in that direction. And then we have many doctors, many researchers, scientists, professors, and all those. So they go deep into the society of the Americans. And I think they can have a very good, it's not just a question of 1% Indians, but it's a question of the impact which they can have even on the other thinking people in America. So I think that therefore that impact becomes more in the swing states, number one, and secondly, among the thinking Americans.
Srinivasji, I would like to ask you here about Kamala Harris. The same question I asked Shashankji. What are Indians thinking about Kamala Harris? What are their opinions? If she is going to get more Indian votes because of her Indian origin?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, yes, the Indian community is very happy to see somebody named Kamala itself is relates to them with the Indian people, our Indian community. They're all happy to see her on the ballot. Uh, and coming back to the, I mean, how the Indian community will vote. Yes, Sashankji mentioned. I mean, yeah, people, we always feel. I mean, at least not we. I would say, but my opinion would be, yeah, the Republican Party of late has been little aggressive on dividing the in divisive politics. Like I'm clear, it is very clear. Like I mean, mine are against immigrants and supporting the local white people. And with that perspective, many people feel it is little, if the Trump presidency is will be little hard on the immigrants. And Kamala Harris, I mean, as Sashankji mentioned, I mean, because of the times her mother came in, and they were associated with the African American minority community, and she went to the African American schools, and she portrayed herself as an African American rather than the Indian. But if you look at the way she grew up, she was brought up, she had a idli sambar at house, and she had the rice and all those things at house. So she was brought up with all the Indian culture and Indian values. So she cannot say, I mean, we cannot say that she is not Indian. For sure, she is Indian, no doubt about it. But yeah, as the political system and the majority with whom she can be associated, she aligned with the African Americans. From that point of view, yes, she has to do what is right for her. That's what she did. So from that point of view, I would say, I mean, Indians, but Indians are, many Indians are happy to see her on the ticket, and some of them have changed their stand because of her toward the Biden presidency too. I mean, sorry, Biden's ticket for sure. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Shashank, what would be the specific approach of Biden presidency on Pakistan or China and Afghanistan? Do you see some new maneuvering in the US foreign policy under the Biden administration?
Well, as far as the past record goes, we find that the Democrats normally don't move out of a war theater. So therefore, they may not move out easily because they would not like to take the blame for evacuating theater as losing the war. So that will not go well with them. Uh, Therefore, I feel that what Trump has been able to do to say that, well, we'll withdraw from Afghanistan. Earlier, he had been saying that they would withdraw from Syria, from Iraq, from other places. That Republicans are used to do that. They enter and they go away. The Democrats slow. They will stay there. So I think the Democrats will find it very difficult to take that kind of a decision to withdraw and leave Afghanistan to its own devices. I have a feeling that India will have better uh, contact with the Americans with regard to stability in Afghanistan, with regard to making sure that the democratic processes which have been implemented there, the women rights which have been brought in there to the Afghan society are not completely finished off. Because already we are seeing that many of the uh, democratic institutions, many of the women's institutions are coming under attack from the Taliban. And the way we are seeing how the Islamic terror is moving into Europe and America and elsewhere, that this will be much more in the minds of the strategic experts of the new US administration. So Biden administration also will keep that in mind, that simply by making concessions to the Taliban will not endear them to people in the Western world. And within Asia also, they will find more partners if they can consult the Asian countries. Because if you remember, the Democrats have always been saying that in Afghanistan and other issues, they must consult these neighboring countries and take them on board with regard to stability in Afghanistan. So therefore, India hopes that that will be a major area where they can work together with the United States. Pakistan, of course, is hoping that because the likely changes which may come about in Pakistan, the Americans would look more kindly at restarting their assistance programs to Pakistan. But Pakistan has this difficulty of the Financial Action Task Force. That Financial Action Task Force, they have put them in grey list. And to come out of that grey list is going to be very difficult. The same way as it is proving to be difficult for India to ensure that Pakistan somehow moves into the blacklist because they are not fulfilling their commitments to take action against the terrorist elements within Pakistan. As far as China is concerned, there again, I think there are going to be issues which are of strategic concern for Asia. And I'm quite sure that Biden, after consulting the Asian countries altogether, they will perhaps come to the same conclusion as President Trump, that it is worthwhile cultivating India and the other Asian countries which are coming under pressure from a rising China, because China has made its position very clear that in the next 15, 20 years, they will overtake the United States as number one military power and economic power, technology power in the world. So if America and Biden is willing to agree to that position, which will be, I think, very difficult for the democratic administration to concede that right. It's a different matter to concede that some companies move to America, to China from America, because then China becomes an economic powerhouse. But to, let's say, talking about Huawei 5G technology, to talk about the anti-satellite weapons, to talk about all kinds of new technology. I think the Democrats will not like to see America lose its edge, lose its leadership position, or Taiwan coming under so much pressure that the most important chips which are being manufactured by Taiwan, that they come under total direct control of the Chinese. So I don't see that coming into the Biden administration.
So, in the Biden presidency, which country will play a major role? Do you think India as a major player and ally, or vis-a-vis China in Asia?
It will be a balancing game initially. Ultimately, we hope that not just India alone, but India and the other Asian countries, which are now more or less on the same page, they would be able to convince the Biden administration to look at China more critically, to ensure that China, which has been spreading its viruses all over and trying to hack the systems of other countries, trying to go for its expansionist foreign policy, is brought under some kind of restraints. So so we are hoping that it will not be an immediate thing. Immediately, they will have to start off from where they left under the Obama presidency, but gradually they will understand that mood in Asia has changed, and so therefore they will also have to change over a period of time.
Okay. And do you see a protracted US elections, even a legal battle on the result of the presidential election? Because President Trump may not accept the defeat easily, as he's suggesting in some of his interviews.
Well, he has made some statements. Sometimes he said that matter might go to the Supreme Court. On the other hand, he has also said that if the Democratic Party wins the election, he may have to leave the United States and make his home somewhere else. So one does not know which kind of policy is he going to pursue. Ultimately, it will be a decision of the Republican Party, and they will have to decide. And the voters and the governors of the states where they might feel that what they were suggesting to their respective candidates, they have not been able to fulfill that promise. And they might then, in that case, go to the court of law and to the Supreme Court, where we find that right now the opinion is so badly divided that the Democratic members of the Senate Judicial Committee even withdrew from the voting pattern, and it was almost a unanimous vote in favor of Judge Barrett to become Supreme Court. So maybe by Monday or Tuesday we will know. So the Supreme Court will be definitely Republican for next few years. The different matter is whether the matter goes to the court or not. That will have to be decided by on the basis of the actual results of the elections.
Srinivas, what is your opinion on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, there are many parameters involved in this election, especially they have a lot of early voting already happened, and there are a lot of mail-in ballots coming in, and also the way the procedures of different states are handling the mail-in ballots. I mean, some states they say that, I mean, the mail-in ballot has to be received by November 3rd. And some states they say that a mail-in ballot can have a date of November 3rd on the envelope. I mean, as long as it has the date, it can they can count it. So with many parameters here, again, the mail-in ballots. I mean, there are many people who are doing the mail-in ballot for the first time, so they don't know the right way to, to cast their vote. So there is a possibility of some of the votes getting rejected. So with all these parameters and the battleground states, I mean, with all these things, the stakes are high, and we are not sure which we cannot predict clearly who is going to be a winner. I mean, the polls are different, as Shashank mentioned earlier. I mean, polls are different, but I mean, a popular vote for sure, probably because of the population. I mean, demographics in the different states. Popular votes may be in favor of one particular one candidate, but when it comes to electoral votes, it will be different. With all these things, there is a probable possibility of it going to the, legal battle, but we have to wait and see. And at the same time, there is a chance we may have the result on the November 3rd night itself. and we are doing is a guessing right now. So I'm also guessing along with everybody else. That's it.
And so, you being of Indian origin, I would like to ask you this specific question that what if Trump comes back? What would be the approach of Trump administration towards issue of trade liberalization, especially liberal H-1B visa? Do you see him hardening his position on both the issues?
See, I mean, the H-1B is a different, sorry, it's a little tricky situation. I mean, whoever comes, I'm sure it will be a little hard. They will be hard, they will tighten the immigration rules for sure. H-1B especially, yes, they will. The reason is, I mean, as we said in the beginning, the primary issue in the US elections right now is the economy and especially the jobs to the local people. When it comes to the jobs to the local people, they all, whether it is true or not, the local people in their mind they have, including African Americans. I mean, the people from outside, they're coming and they're taking away our jobs. We don't know really, if we offer the job to them, they will do it or they will take it or not. That's a different story. But they all feel that, I mean, the immigrants are taking away their opportunity to succeed. So with that in mind, it will be a little challenge. It will be hard. Whoever comes in, they will be hard on the immigration for sure. But in that process, I would say, if they tighten the immigration rules, the jobs in India will go up for sure. So what happens? What I've been seeing the IT industry for last, I mean, at least 20-24 years. So the day they tighten things here, the jobs. I mean, the customer is very happy. They said, I don't want to handle all these immigration issues. Take this job wherever you want and get the job done for me. So they obviously their final destination will be the chosen destination will be the India, and the jobs in India will go up. So the IT sector in India will boom. Whatever may be, it will be beneficial to the Indian IT companies for sure.
Okay. So, Shashankji, your concluding comment on US elections, how India should be prepared about it? Whosoever comes, be it Biden or Trump's comeback.
Yes, I think India should prepare itself for more economic cooperation with the American government, which is in power, because they will have to make a decision whether to get closer to China in Asia or to come closer to other Asian countries. So India will have to prepare itself in that direction by opening itself, making more investor-friendly climate, and to make sure that our issues, our positions are articulated much more closely with all the new administration people in America. I think that is for the strategic part. And in the meantime, whatever we can achieve to get India and America closer and the perceptions closer, I think that will also have an impact on the incoming administration, that they will be briefed by the outgoing administration about the various issues which are in the works and which are more or less there. So whether they need to be completely forgotten or they need to be moved ahead in the same direction. So that will be a challenge which we'll have to see. But on the economic side, there's no challenge. And Srinivasji also said that H-1B visa, etc., whatever the issue, we have to get closer. We have to make ourselves a much better friendly investment climate in India, much better relationship on the economic side with the American side.
Okay. And Srinivasji, your concluding comment as in American voters whom they are expecting more. I mean, are they positive more about Biden, or they foresee that maybe Trump is coming back?
I mean, see, both the bases are, I mean, excited about their own candidate. I mean, I would say, to be honest with you, some of the cartoons, what I see, even the leftist magazines, they say that I'm excited to vote for Trump. And some people say that I'm excited to vote against the Trump. So the issue is, I mean, whether, I mean, the for Trump or against the Trump. So it's not, I mean, I don't see, I don't want to say that one on live. I mean, at least that's what the people are cartoonists or magazines are saying. So, I mean, the stakes are high. As we said earlier, we are all guessing, and the chances of battleground. The bottom line, it goes to the battleground states, and the key, the minor, some percentage of the minor percentage of the voters will make a difference in these elections this year. So we will let's all keep guessing and wait for the elections day, and then look for the results, and then take it from there. Whatever it is, we have to take it and then move forward. One good thing is, I mean, both the systems in India or US, the systems are being, I'm sure Shashankji knows much better than me. Most of the systems are run by the bureaucrats. I mean, back end system. So whoever the leader comes in, he can only influence it to some extent. So with that taken, I mean, the systems are strong, both, I mean, US. So I'm sure whoever comes in, it will go well. I mean, with the minor changes, and the people will survive and prosper, and then it will be good for everybody. That's all I say.
Thank you, Srinivasji, for joining us from Michigan and sharing your views about the hard-fought battle in the US elections, US presidential election. And thank you, Shashankji, for joining us from the northern part of India and sharing your views about US election. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you.
Shashankji. We extend our gratitude to you for being there with us for so long. Thank you for being part of this show.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Be
Thank you,
kind of you.
Purnima. Thank you, and have a
Thank
nice
you.
rest of
Thank
the
you.
day.